Hey everybody, it's Jackie, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about some tips for watercolor painting. So you can see I have 2 cups of water. One is a dirty cup and the other is clean. So I use 1 cup to rinse my brush anytime it's got paint on it, and the other cup I use for clean water anytime I'm using a wet on wet technique, which I will show you in a minute. So I have already painted one rectangle here with some watercolor paint, and I'm just doing a second layer so that I can get a nice amount of saturation. Here I am using the water to actually lift off and scrub away paint that is already dried on the surface of this Bristol paper. So I wet it and then I dab it away with my paper towel, and you can see that it actually erases quite a bit, but it won't forgive everything. Now I am taking my flat brush and I am going to wet the surface of the paper. Make sure it is nice and wet. And now I'm going to just put a little bit of paint and make sort of like a transparent glaze. Working with another brush, I'm going to show you what happens when you paint wet into wet. So the surface of the paper is wet, and I am adding more wet paint into this pool. See, it's quite different from what it looks like when you use a wet brush on the dry paper. The wet on wet technique spreads out and you have a lot less control. Now I'm going to take a smaller brush and I'm going to mix up some yellow. And I'm going to keep this yellow fairly transparent, and I will show you what happens when you layer 2 transparent colors on top of each other. So the blue is underneath and it is already dry, and now I've put just a thin layer of yellow over top so you can see how different that looks compared to the yellow that I am now painting right next to it. Now I'm mixing up a little bit of red just to show you what will happen if I make a transparent red layer over the blue. Anytime you have too much liquid in your brush, you should just dab it on a clean paper towel. I'm using the bristles of the brush to help smooth out the paint to get a nice even surface here. Okay, if you've ever wondered how you can blend 2 colors together, I'm going to show you a quick way to make a simple gradient. So I've loaded up the paper with some blue paint. Now I'm taking the same brush and I'm going to use red paint, and I'm painting a stripe right next to the blue stripe that I've already put on the paper. I'm going to clean my brush, dab the excess water, and now using that brush, I'm going to go back and forth, a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, so I'm actually blending these 2 colors together. And the effect that it creates is something like an ombre or a gradient. I'm going to add a little bit more blue and go back with my dry brush here to show you how to create that blending technique. Again, if there's too much water, just use a brush, dry brush, and you can remove it. Now I'm working with a round brush and some green. And I'm just going to play around for a minute and see what kinds of different marks I can create if I use varying amounts of pressure with the brush. So if I start with a lot of pressure and then lift up, I get something that looks kind of like a petal. And if I hold the brush up near the end of it and I have less control, I can kind of make squiggly lines. You can also play around with your flat brushes to see what happens if you hold them at different angles or try using them with varying amounts of pressure as well. And that is about it in this short watercolor tutorial. Make sure when you are done with your brushes, first you rinse them well in your dirty cup. Then you can take them to your sink and clean them with just a little bit of soapy water. You can use a clean paper towel to wipe off your palette when it gets dirty like so. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you all soon.